say that Mother's Choice has radically shaped my life over the last 20 years is definitely not an understatement. I moved to Hong Kong with my family when I was 11, and my father was in banking at the time, and our family lived on the south side of the island. I have an older sister and a younger sister, and about sort of towards the end of my high school career, my dad decided to quit his financial career and move into a voluntary job at a local orphanage. And so as a family we moved into Mother's Choice. But soon after we moved in as a family, we began to build a relationship with one of the young boys in the We Care unit, the special needs unit. His name was James. He has Down syndrome. And we just, as a family, had an amazingly tight bond with him straight away. And that bond led to a time of fostering him as a family. And soon after that, we decided to adopt him. And so James came into our family at 4 years old. He's now 17, and he's just about to actually graduate the same high school that I was in when we adopted him as a family. And he's an amazing man, full of life, and a typical teenager. So it's been great to have James as part of our family. Now, if that's all Mother's Choice has ever done for me, I'd be pretty overwhelmed, but my story doesn't stop there. A few years later, I graduated from university, moved back to work in Hong Kong, and my parents were still living at the orphanage, so I moved in with them again. I came home one night from work, and there was this beautiful blonde New Zealand girl sitting in the living room talking to my parents. And I sat there mesmerized all evening, and after she left, I said to my dad, could she come over every night? And he said, no son, she can't. But she is a full-time worker at Mother's Choice. I could tell you when she's working shifts at Mother's Choice on the weekends, you could sign up as a volunteer and perhaps get to know her that way. My dad was always looking for an excuse to get me to work at Mother's Choice. So sure enough, just a month or so later, I volunteered to work at Mother's Choice on the weekends, albeit with completely ulterior motives. But got to know Chris very well doing that. And so much so that 9 months later, we got engaged. And 9 months after that, we were married here in Hong Kong. So Mother's Choice has not only given me a brother, but it's also given me my wife. Now, if that's all Mother's Choice had done for me, a brother and a wife, of course that's amazing, but my story doesn't finish there. About 8 years into marriage with Chris, we decided to start trying for children. And 2 years later, we were still unsuccessful, so we went into the doctors to begin to have tests. And after about a year of that, it was discovered that I was actually infertile, that I wouldn't be able to father children. And of course that was a big shock to us in our marriage, but even before we were married, we had talked about wanting to adopt at some point, given our relationship of meeting in Mother's Choice. And so adoption was always an option for us. And we decided to start the adoption process here in Hong Kong. Now, how it works in Hong Kong is that you go through the social welfare department, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get a child from any one particular orphanage in Hong Kong. But of course, my wife and I were hoping and praying that our child would come from Mother's Choice. And about 2 to 2.5 years into the process, we finally got the phone call from our social worker telling us that we had been matched to a beautiful 16-month-old girl. And it turns out that, of course, our little girl was from Mother's Choice. And so it's just this beautiful end to our story. Little Mia has been in our family now for about 3 months. She's amazing, just full of life. She's really the answer to so many prayers, exactly what we wanted in a child, and we just can't believe it. So Mother's Choice has given me my brother, my wife, and also now my daughter. And it's really an amazing thing. And when I reflect on the work of Mother's Choice, that's what I think about. I think about family. That's what this organization does. It creates families for people that are not able to have or experience family. And I know that Chris and I have obviously been majorly impacted by that, but I know many other couples, both here in Hong Kong and around the world, that have experienced family through the work of Mother's Choice. And so I want to thank you for your generous support of this organization and helping people like me and my wife know what it is to be family.